An unprecedented food crisis is gripping large parts of Africa. An estimated 17 million people are in dire need of emergency food assistance and safe drinking water. In just hours from now, in his first major speech, U.S. President Donald Trump lays out his vision for the future of America to a joint session of Congress and a worldwide audience. And harnessing the medicinal properties of garlic, how one man in Rwanda is battling malnutrition in his community. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. We'll have those stories in a moment. But first, the journey to Europe from Africa for migrants is fraught with danger. Women and children making the harrowing trek to flee poverty and conflict are being beaten, raped and starved in Libya, according to the United Nations Children Agency. The UN says that amid the political chaos ongoing in Libya, armed groups competing and cooperating with criminal gangs and smugglers have taken effective control of official detention centers set up to help migrants. The Mediterranean Sea between Libya and Italy is the main crossing point for asylum seekers and economic migrants seeking a better life in Europe. As of last September, there were 250,000 migrants in Libya. Most are languishing in unsanitary, disease-ridden detention centers, which UNICEF described in its report as no more than forced labor camps and makeshift prisons. Now, Somalia's newly elected President Mohamed Abdullahi Mohamed on Tuesday declared a national disaster due to severe drought, which international aid agencies say has left some 3 million people in crisis. The East African nation is one of 3 countries declared by the United Nations as being on the verge of famine, along with Nigeria and South Sudan. An estimated 17 million people across Somalia, Ethiopia, Kenya and Uganda are also facing severe food shortages, a lack of safe drinking water, and are in need of urgent humanitarian assistance. The UN says catastrophic drought has ruined crops and killed millions of livestock. Now, for more insight into the severe food shortages in Africa, we're joined by Ephraim Konya, a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute. Ephraim, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you.
Now, we know that the very obvious word that comes up when we're talking about these severe food shortages is drought. This has been happening in the past. From your studies, from your experience, is what we're experiencing today any different than past famines or food shortages in Africa?
No. Actually, some of the things which are happening are predictable. There is El Nino, which is currently going on, and it started in 2016 and spanned over to 2017. And we know they come and go. And the drought, especially in areas like Somalia, which are dry, semi-arid areas, the drought is something they have lived with forever.
Yeah. Now, because this is a reality of their lives, I've looked at your studies, IFPRI studies. They suggest that there are things that could be done, in fact, to help those farmers, those countries adapt to climate change, increase their crop yields, and even mitigate greenhouse gas emissions. What are those that a country like Somalia could do?
Exactly. Now, I think let's first of all look at the situation on the ground. The first thing is that I think you have a house. If you don't have one, you're going to build one. You start with the foundation. The governance is the foundation of any stability, of any resilience. Because if you don't have a government which is stable and it is providing the security that the people need to do the economic development, then you are not going to be able to have a strong house. So now look at Somalia. For the past 26 years, it has never been having a government. As a result, the governance of the people and everything they invest in is quite vulnerable to people who have guns, people who have power to take away anything that they want. So the first thing is that governance should be the foundation that should be built before we can think about anything like that. Now, let's go beyond the governance. There are things that we have seen in our studies that can build the resilience. In the past, both the governments and even development agencies, they have always been doing what we call the fire brigade approach. There is a problem, there is humanitarian aid which come in, and after that drought goes away, even the development aspects and everything else goes away. But now everybody, I just came from Mali, is trying to build resilience of the people.
The thing is, these are communities that, for example, some are dependent on livestock. And when this time comes, they just lose thousands of their cattle, their goats. What are some of the mechanisms, some of the strategies being used on the ground to develop resilience in that kind of environment so that they don't have to face famine or deaths?
Well, I think the first thing is that you have to diversify. So, for example, there is a problem of drought. If somebody had a non-farm activity, which they are also earning money from, they can buy food, and when all the crops wither away, and even when the livestock is lost. So diversification is one of the most important and important aspect of building resilience. And the second thing is actually very surprising: women empowerment. That's something which we have seen. I think we all come from Africa. We know that if you give money to the guy, they're gonna think of marrying a second wife. But if you give that asset to a woman, they always think about the welfare of the family. So building the women empowerment is something which you have seen that it actually enhances resilience. And we also have seen that if you, among building the assets, and this is something which is being done all across, that building assets, for example, livestock, you give livestock to people who don't have, and the livestock is an asset that which you build, it increases the resilience.
Now, tell me what is being done to help especially pastoral communities that have all these animals that they lose every year, every time there's drought across Africa. Is there anything happening on the ground to make sure you can convert this into wealth, into money that can be used in lean times?
The most unfortunate thing that if you look at budgets of African countries, the amount of money that they invest towards livestock development is quite limited. And this is quite surprising, given that the demand for livestock is increasing as income of people increases, as urbanization increases, it increases. But there is sort of a neglect in terms of building development livestock. But actually, the thing that we have seen that to develop, for example, pastoral communities, the best thing, one of the best things is actually to let them lead their nomadic life. That's very important, especially when there is drought like what we're talking about. You can move your livestock, but you can't move your crops. So livestock movement is an important resilience mechanism that the pastoral communities have been building. But now the things are actually changing because there is this land privatization, and there are some borders which are inhibiting the movement of the cattle. So that's something which is very important.
Okay, I have a feeling we'll be talking about this in the coming days because it's not going anywhere. Thanks a lot for joining us today and sharing those insights with us.
Thank you.
Thanks, appreciate it. Ephraim Konya is a senior research fellow at the International Food Policy Research Institute here in Washington. Now, the Mo Ibrahim Foundation announced on Tuesday that there is no winner for the 2016 Ibrahim Prize for Achievements in Africa Leadership. Now, commenting on the decision of the Independent Prize Committee, Committee Chairman Dr. Salim Ahmed Salim said, "We recognize and applaud the important contributions that many African leaders have made to change their countries for the better, but the prize is intended to highlight and celebrate truly exceptional leadership, and after careful consideration, the committee has decided not to award the prize in 2016. Since being launched in 2006, the Ibrahim Prize has only awarded 4 times. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump will address a joint session of Congress and the American people Tuesday night. In his first major speech since becoming commander-in-chief, the president is expected to talk about his budget priorities for the coming year, including a big boost in defense spending, but cuts in foreign aid programs and domestic spending. VOA national correspondent Jim Malone previews Trump's address.
President Trump gave a preview of his speech before Congress during a meeting with state governors at the White House.
This budget follows through on my promise to focus on keeping Americans safe, keeping out terrorists, keeping out criminals, and putting violent offenders behind bars or removing them from our country altogether.
In addition to boosting defense spending and cutting domestic programs, lawmakers also hope to hear more from the president on tax reform and health care, says analyst John Fortier.
But he and Congress broadly agree on repealing Obamacare and a tax cut and border security and regulatory reform. So those are the kinds of things he's going to have to bring his Republican colleagues together on.
Democrats seem to be more in a mood to resist many of the president's initiatives, and that includes the new party chairman, former Labor Secretary Tom Perez.
Donald Trump, you do not stand for America. Donald Trump, we will not allow those values to divide America. And that is what we will do as a party, leading with our values.
At numerous congressional town halls in recent days, anger over Trump and feared health care changes have been on display, including this one hosted by Senate Republican leader Mitch McConnell.
Veterans are sick, the veterans are broken down, they're not getting what they need.
President Trump also seems primed for battle, not only with Democrats, but with the news media.
And we have to fight it, folks. We have to fight it. They're very smart, they're very cunning, and they're very dishonest.
Some Republicans see the attacks on the media as an unnecessary distraction, but it's also part of the president's unpredictable nature, says Republican strategist John Fury.
He's unpredictable on purpose. This has been his sole strategy, and that's a sea change for most presidents who have tried to be earnestly predictable.
Trump may also use his congressional address to reassure voters after what has been at times a chaotic start to his presidency, and to try to boost his poll ratings, which remain at a low point for a new president. Jim Malone, VOA News, Washington.
Well, we want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54. We're also streaming our show live on Facebook. So check us out and share our show with your friends. And also check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, harnessing the medicinal properties of garlic. How one man in Rwanda is battling malnutrition in his community. Stay with us.
Health news and notes. This is Living Better.
Celebrities like Kim Kardashian seeming to have effortless pregnancies and rebound from them with ease. But celebrity trainer Simone De La Rue says that's not how it happens.
I always say to women, it took you 9 months to put the weight on, allow yourself, 9 months, to get it off. We shouldn't be trying to do it in 4 weeks or 6 weeks.
De La Rue says that new mothers should ease back into exercise and check with their doctors before doing so. During pregnancy, don't overeat and keep moderately exercising, so says personal trainer Harley Pasternak.
How a lot of these stars did it is they didn't wait till they gave birth to do it. They were doing it before they got pregnant. They didn't stop taking care of themselves throughout the pregnancy.
Exercise for pregnancy isn't just a way to look better. New research suggests it may be an efficient way for pregnant women to lower their risk of diabetes, high blood pressure, and other complications. I'm Martin Seacrest for VOA's Living Better.
Well, it's time for our health report, and joining us now is Africa 54 health correspondent Lino Madu with a look at heart disease and its effect on men. Lino.
Thanks, Vincent. Today we are concluding our February special focus on heart disease with an in-depth look at men and heart disease. The World Health Organization says an estimated 31% of all deaths worldwide are due to cardiovascular disease. That's 17.5 million people each year. The American Heart Association says many men are at high risk for developing cardiovascular diseases. More than 1 in 3 adult men in the United States has heart disease. Tobacco use and unhealthy diet and physical inactivity all increase the risk of heart attacks and strokes. 80% of all cardiovascular deaths are due to heart attacks and strokes. To continue our look at heart disease, joining us live via Skype from Los Angeles, California, is Dr. Emily Farkas, a cardiothoracic surgeon at Theodore Care Appleton Heart Institute in Wisconsin. Dr. Farkas also serves on the board of trustees for the humanitarian organization Cardio Start International and VOOM Foundation. Dr. Farkas, welcome to Africa 54.
Thank you very much.
So help us to understand heart disease in men. When we hear that men are at high risk of developing heart disease, does it have to do with the biology, or is it mainly about lifestyle?
You know, it's a little bit about both, and I think you hit some of the most important risk factors in your introduction. You know, we know that heart disease is caused by things like obesity, inactivity, which can contribute to that, high cholesterol, smoking, diabetes, high blood pressure. So things all affect heart disease.
So what are some of early signs of heart disease in men?
You know, everyone manifests it a little bit differently, but most commonly what people will find is that they can't do as much exercise as they used to, or even doing simple activities seems to wear them down, cause fatigue, cause shortness of breath, or commonly some discomfort or pooling or tightness in the chest.
Do you find that men are aware of this issue? Do they make it one of the priorities in your practice?
You know, that's a great question, because many don't. So I think we all have a tendency to minimize what we're experiencing, or to blame it on something less severe. And so men tend to do that just as well as women. But it's something that if you notice something in your body that doesn't seem quite right, then it needs to be investigated, and especially with those symptoms that we talked about, or any history in your family of heart disease.
So explain to us quickly the extent to which heart disease among men differ according to race and age.
Yeah, so as we get older, you know, the exposure to things like cholesterol buildup, or years of high blood pressure, or years of smoke exposure build up, and so the risk is higher as we age. Regarding populations, it's been shown that African American populations have more heart disease than other populations, such as Asian Americans or Hispanics.
Mm-hmm. And if we were to look at some very basic steps to help men prevent the occurrence of heart disease, what would you say?
Just to keep things like diabetes under control, to be aware of your blood pressure and ways that you can reduce it if it's elevated. Seeing your doctor regularly, to have basic tests taken to see if you're at risk. Okay,
Dr. Farkas, we have to leave it there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you.
And that was Dr. Emily Farkas. She is cardiothoracic surgeon at Theodore Care Appleton Heart Institute. Now to Rwanda, where Martin Bonane is not only battling malnutrition in his community, but he has also big plans for harnessing the medicinal properties of garlic.
Gataraga village is located in Musanze, a northern province in Rwanda. Despite the beautiful and green landscape, many children in this community suffer from malnutrition. Martin Bunane was raised here. Growing up, he saw the need to make a difference.
So the increment of diseases was too large. So at that time, it shocked me. I got a scholarship to go to study abroad about civil engineering, but I didn't want about that, because I want to help my community solve those challenges of health and whatever. So I decided to go to the University of Rwanda to study pharmacy.
Bonane helped his older sister create a kitchen garden in her backyard, planting a variety of vegetables, including garlic.
My mom used to give us garlic when you just got some diseases, just to help you to just infections when you have some burns in your belly.
Bonane, who did not fully understand the significance of the garlic then, would later learn that garlic has a compound called allicin, which has potent medicinal properties. Allicin is also responsible for the plant's pungent smell. In a review published in 2009, the University of Maryland Medical Center noted that allicin has a variety of antimicrobial properties. Among other things, it has antiviral effects, and it's effective against a wide range of bacteria, including drug-resistant strains of staph infections. Garlic is also said to boost immune systems, fight the common cold, and reduce blood pressure. Bunane has formed a women's group called Tuzamurane, which is Kinyarwanda for Let's Lift Each Other Up. In the group, he is encouraging women to grow garlic for both commercial and home use.
Before, it was very difficult to prepare a variety of dishes because the people in our village have one preference when it comes to meals. But now, they're changing variety by adding different vegetables and adding garlic. We just want to gain more knowledge so we can expand our production.
Bonane, who joined former U.S. President Barack Obama's yearly program, returned to Rwanda after completing the initiative's 12 weeks of training and has started the Gataraga Youth Cooperative. He enrolled 30 youth and has trained them on the health benefits of garlic. The youth then dispense this knowledge in the villages in and around Musanze. He hopes to merge his love for pharmacy and agriculture to one day make a cure for cancer from garlic.
And that's our health report for today. To stay in touch, find me on Twitter at Lenore Moudou. Back to you, Vincent.
Well, Lenore, thank you very much. Now be sure to watch Lenore Moudou's health reports every Tuesday and Thursday right here on Africa 54. Now, recently, we asked you to share your hopes, expectations, and aspirations for 2017. We have received a lot of great responses and want to share some of them with you. So let's get started here. Ganduk Bamoy Badek Bora from Accra wishes for a peaceful Ghana with stability that will promote development. Lamin Jaite from Banjul in the Gambia hopes that 2017 will bring good governance, rule of law, democracy, and respect for human rights. And now from Kenya, where I come from, Ngoenyo Renga from Nairobi cautions that watchdog agencies look like they were bought out. We need them back, he says. Finally, Saiko Ngasama from Tankular at the Lower River in the Gambia makes a plea and says, please, African leaders, don't rule Africa poorly. Well, thank you very much for your responses, and please keep them coming. We have a new question now. Tell me, what do you expect from the Trump presidency as it relates to Africa? To participate in our social media segment, visit Facebook. The address is Africa54, or send me a tweet at VOA Vince Makori. Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. An African-American dance school here in Washington has been making history for more than 75 years. We'll be right back.
I don't know really how I felt. You always say you feel anger and everything.
Well, February is Black History Month in the U.S., and a dance school here in Washington has been making history for more than 75 years with its commitment to providing high-quality dance training. The Jones Haywood Dance School, which started at a time when African-American dancers had limited opportunities to study classical ballet, is thriving. VOA's Cara Pearson has the story.
Artistic director Sandra Fortune Green calls herself the guardian of the school's legacy.
I came here as an 11-year-old student, and I took classes here, and as I got older, once or twice a week turned into 6 or 7 days a week through adulthood. Then in 1973, I had my first real experience of competing in the second international ballet competition in Moscow, Russia.
The school was founded in 1941 by her former teachers, Doris Jones and Claire Haywood.
They created the school because there were so few opportunities for African American children to study classical ballet. And so they decided that they would be the pioneers for that kind of experience.
Fortune Green took over the leadership 10 years ago after both founders passed away. She says the school is not only for dance, but raising children through dance.
I like for them to think of dance as a metaphor to life, because you must have an impeccable work ethic to be successful in anything. They're learning personal discipline. They're learning to work at your best all the time. And most importantly, I like to instill in the children to work with a certain integrity, even if you are uncomfortable. And you learn that through dance.
Many students here started coming to Hayward Jones School when they were 3 or 4 years old, like Lena Ramey.
My dream is to be on Broadway when I grow up. I've learned a lot of things like discipline and following directions. What I like about Miss Fortune is that she challenges us, and she's strict, so she likes things to be very nice and perfect, and I like that she pushes us a lot.
When I grow up, I dream to be a famous ballerina, and I want to continue dancing for all of my life.
Still, at its original location, the school has become a Washington landmark and one of the stops in the city's African American Heritage Trail.
It has lasted this long because of the people who come through here. And they think that it is very important. And because it has substance, it has a character, and it has a tradition. And I think that tradition will always last. I'm not big on trend, because trend is in and out. It changes like the weather. But tradition has a tenure that just lasts forever.
Fortune Green hopes the school's tradition continues another 75 years or more. For producer June So, I'm Carol Pearson, VOA News, Washington.
Great. That's our show for today, and I'll be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings to Daybreak Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching from all of us in Washington. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words. Here's a story about journalists keeping secret the names of people who give them information.
Confidential. The ability to keep sources confidential is central to the practice of journalism, and it's very difficult for journalists to be able to do their job, which is upholding our democracy, ensuring that the government is transparent and accountable, if they're not allowed to keep their sources confidential.
Confidential means to keep a secret. Sometimes journalists keep secret the names of their sources to prevent them from getting into trouble. Friends also keep information confidential.
Now, when you hear the word confidential, you will know what this news word means.
Find us and friend us on Facebook. VOA Learning English.